Tracy Morgan in SNL. It's Brian Fellows, Safari Planet. Brian Fellows, Safari Planet. Brian Fellows, Safari Planet. I want Hilary Swank in the next Terminator movie so bad.
There is nothing in this world that you give me to do to hug a robot.
It's because it's so incredible and intricate that it's impossible not to notice.
Music's the core of this movie.
I was born again to watch this movie.
You'll find redeeming things and you'll be thinking about it for a long time afterwards.
There was no bone saw.
Just John hamming it up over here.
2.5 out of 3 of us recommend it.
Everybody loves talking about movies. Let's talk about movies.
Hey there. Welcome to the Pause Rewind Play podcast. I wanted to make this as awkward as possible once again.
I never know how you're going to start it. I'm always like, what's going to happen this time?
Well, welcome one and all.
Ladies and gentlemen. Hey there.
We just like have a whole intro where each of us are just Vince is speaking Spanish, I'm speaking in
We're
Portuguese.
just all doing it in a different
Oh,
language.
wait,
and I'll
Casey's in
understand
Tagalog.
something.
Here you go. I'll do the way they introduce the news. Magandang gabi, senyor lahat. Nandito tayo sa podcast ng Pause Rewind Play.
We had those in Puerto Rico. Cinco, 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 dos. Oh, sorry, I blew out the thing there.
Oh my gosh. And then at the end of the news, this guy, he says, Magandang gabi, bayan, which means good evening, country, every time. And it's like, that's so cool. But anyhow, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for listening to us fiddle around a little bit with language, humor, and fun. None of us are comedians yet, but we would like to take you on a journey tonight into the land of Willow in that movie. But first, let's hurry and catch up with the cast and see what's been going down, what we've been watching, and where we go from there. So let's start out. Vince, what's been on Vince's watch agenda lately?
You know, I really wish I would have written down some of the words for Will, because after you said, like, we're entering the world of Willow, I was just like, oh, crap, I can't even remember what the people are called. It's going to be an interesting trip.
Yeah, it'll be a wild ride.
I don't have any TV shows or movies to talk about, but I finally started listening to Office Ladies, the podcast.
Oh, nice.
It's good. Have you started it at all?
It's good. There's like good insight and stuff.
Yeah. It's just, I've only listened to the pilot so far, and
They don't have like, and I haven't listened to all their episodes. I think I've listened to like the first 5. They have sort of like a different, like not weirder dynamic, I guess, than
I know
like
what
when
you're
they
talking
did on
about.
a thing. And it's kind of awkward.
it's really weird to hear Angela as a normal person and not Angela as Angela. But yeah, they kind of seem like they're not like, I mean, and they say it in the pilot. They're like, we don't really know what we're doing. We're new to this, so we're trying to, do it. And they kind of seem like they're overcompensating a little bit. But I totally get it. Like we sucked when we first started,
We still kind of suck.
Yeah, exactly. We still are learning, and we're like 30 episodes into
What are
this
you guys
thing. We're
talking
still
about?
like figuring this thing
This
out.
is going to receive an award for journalism
In 2020.
Yeah.
in 2067. At the end of my life, my very last day alive, someone's going to be like, hey, we dug up your old podcast.
And it's amazing.
Casey Yardley did a podcast.
Yeah,
That's all it's gonna say on your good stuff.
Yeah, Casey Yardley did a podcast. Also,
Just the logo.
weird
the
dude. Unmarked grave, essentially, just so people go back and find it. After I'm dead, we're going to hit 1 billion plays because it's going to be on the weird gravestones, like found weird gravestones.
They don't even know what this was.
What is this logo?
But yeah, I started listening to the pilot, and I understand totally what you're talking about. But like, I love the insights and the tidbits, and just listening to the behind the scenes from the people that were there stuff, and that's what I'm more excited about than anything. They can kind of stumble about and have their weird dynamic or whatever, as long as they tell me secrets from the set
That you didn't know
I'm
before.
in. Yeah, and that's what they did in the first one. So
And they keep doing it. It's really cool.
yeah, I can tell Jenna Fisher is really nervous too. I mean, in the beginning of the second episode, I'm like 5 minutes into the second one. She even says like, or maybe it was the end of the first one. I can't remember. But she's like, I got really nervous halfway through. We had to stop and we had to have a little dance party so I could get out of my head. Like I was just like, oh, that's kind of endearing.
That's cute.
So yeah.
Nice. What about you, Josh? What's been on the agenda of watching, listening, playing?
Eu só queria dizer que eu também posso falar outro idioma, só para todas as pessoas sabem e aí as pessoas do Brasil.
It's
Anyway,
weird.
Whoa.
It's weird because I recognized words from both of you guys. Like,
Oh, for sure.
Like some Spanish stuff in there. Anyway,
It's true. Yeah.
It's weird that even Tagalog has some of that Spanish stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, Casey started out with like "Cómo estás?" I was like, "What?"
It's Kamusta. Kamust. It's like Kamusta.
¿Cómo está? It sounds like "Cómo está?"
Yeah.
It's where
I thought
it's
too.
where it's derived from is the Spanish "Cómo está."
Anyway, that was just me making sure that everyone knows I'm not uncultured swine and I, can speak another language. Self plug. Boom. But nothing really. I watched Ford vs Ferrari, and it was good. I liked it a lot. I watched it last night.
I've heard that we should do a podcast episode on that actually from some people.
I would not mind that. Like Matt Damon and
Christian Bale.
Christian Bale killed it, and it was really, really good. And like obviously, it was an Oscar-nominated Best Picture movie, but a lot of people were talking about how it was the one that sort of barely snuck in there. And I saw that, but at the same time, I was like, this is so much better than I thought it was going to be. So
I read an initial review for it when it first came out from it's IGN.com, their gaming website. But usually I kind of agree with the ratings they gave. They gave it like a 6 or something like that. Like
it was not good.
way lower than. And so when it
lot
first
of
dropped and I
consensus
saw that
reviews.
number, and I was just like, oh well, I guess I don't want to see this. But I thought it was great. I thought it was really good.
oh, it's really good. And I definitely understood why I got the best editing and best sound
sound
editing.
mixing, sound editing.
I
Sound
think it got
mixing.
sound editing
Editing.
and film editing.
Gotcha.
The 2 Oscars. So that's me, Jinch.
Well, I watched Once Upon a Time for the first time. My wife has started watching
In
that.
Mexico or in Hollywood?
Just Once Upon a Time.
Once
Oh.
Upon a Time is like this
It's happening right
The TV
there outside the
mystical
podcast room
TV
right now.
show that's like fairy tales in the modern day.
Yeah,
It's kinda-
you're asking about that last week, what it was.
Yeah, and she's been watching it like crazy. And so I've watched a couple episodes with it. Pretty cool. A fan of Rumpelstiltskin because he's a trickster.
He's dope.
He's like a better version, and I'm sorry to everyone, of Loki. Like,
a better version?
yeah.
I don't know if I
about
would go that far, but he is really good.
He's what
I haven't
Loki's
seen the
just supposed to be a
show, so I don't know. But
trickster.
Loki's so good.
Loki is great, but like this guy's a trickster. Like everything comes with a price. He says that at one point, so it's kind of interesting. Cool. But I watched The King on Netflix
with Pattinson and
Timothy Chalamet.
Pattinson
Yes.
and Timothy Chalamet. And let me tell you, I freaking loved it. It was probably one of, like, my new favorite medieval war film. Like, it beats Kingdom of Heaven. I get it. That movie was fantastic and amazing. But this was just like, I feel like it was a smaller scale. It was between England and France. Like, there was deceit, there was rumors. I felt like the war wasn't like unrealistic. Like, it was amazing. And then just the way that like the costuming was, like, it was good. And Timothy Chalamet, how you ever say his name, he did so good. And
He's
all the
amazing,
cast, yeah.
dude.
I would, I don't know. He can come on this podcast and tell us about his movie, but literally, you should watch that. It is fantastic.
Okay. I could get into that type of movie or the show right now.
Yeah.
Like I could really get into
You should
that medieval
download
stuff.
it and
Watch
watch
on
it
the
this
plane.
week on your like flight or on your commute on the train.
I
It's just a movie,
downloaded.
right?
Yeah, it's just a Netflix movie.
I downloaded 2. I downloaded Honey Boy on my phone, and I downloaded Mindy Runs a Marathon. It's supposed to be good, so I might pop one of those on.
Cool.
But maybe I will. Maybe I will grab
Grab King.
King.
Grab the King. Sorry, I
Yeah.
keep calling it King,
I
but
could
it's
actually get into that
The
tonight.
King.
Maybe I'll throw that in there.
And plus,
Watch
I
it while we
think
wait for the airplane.
when I'm finished with growing out my hair, I'll just cut my hair like his, and then you can laugh at me. But I think it looks pretty
Just
dope.
like that straight, like bowl cut.
Yeah, I want to look like a medieval monk almost without the middle part shaved.
I don't know, man. You pay a monk. You'd pull off the Viking look better.
Ah, perfect. Yes. That's what I'm going for. But any movie news this week that's kind of dropped that we should bring up?
No.
Nothing I can think of.
Onward is getting super good reviews.
That's
So
what
I'm
I
super
heard.
excited to
I think I should
watch
give
that.
it a 7.
A 7?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if I trust them anymore.
And I understand because like it's probably going to be another, like Pixar movie, and Pixar is they're not like one-dimensional with the way that they make their movies. A lot of their movies are very similar, and I don't mind it at all because I love them every time. Apparently it's really good, really moving. Tears are shed, I guess, in the final act. So
Also,
I'm
I
super
saw
down.
some. Sorry, I'm really excited about that. But I also wanted to let you know that I saw some like screen grabs from like the stunt double of Robert Pattinson with like a souped-out motorcycle.
Oh, yeah.
Batman? I saw
Yeah,
that
the
too.
new Batman stuff. That's gonna be pretty slick. I'm excited for that. Like, They teased it in the perfect way for the costume, and now like posting a couple of photos behind the scenes.
So the big thing right now, and we'll get into the movie right after this, but the big debate is how tall do you think the ears are going to be on the Batsuit? Do you think they're going to be Ben Affleck short? Do you think they're going to be middle height, or do you think they're going to go like tall?
I feel like they'll do them taller, like the classic height.
Like okay, like the Christian Bale.
Yeah.
I hope they don't go higher than that. I don't want tall ears, but.
What if it's like a weapon, just like the super long like dagger ears?
He just like stabs people with his
people.
Or they just turn. But it's supposed to be a leather cowl, right? Like it's not.
It looked like it to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I could be wrong.
Just make the tips hard.
It's headbutting everyone. Yeah.
That's what she said. I'm sorry.
Such a child. I'm sorry, guys.
After I said it, I knew it.
Let's move forward to something else now.
Willow.
Up good.
Willow.
First, let's dive into kind of some of the stats, money, reviews, ratings, Metacritic, all that kind of stuff. Vince, do you kind of have that for us?
Yes, sir. So, this movie was made in 1998.
1988.
I have a typo in my paper. It is 1988. I am 1 year old when this movie comes out. Directed by Ron Howard. Big surprise for me there. Had no idea. Story by George Lucas and screenplay by Bob Dolman. The budget was $35 million and it grossed $57 million. I have a quick fun fact on that one. Various major film studios turned down the chance to distribute and co-finance the movie with Lucasfilm because they believed the fantasy genre was unsuccessful. This was largely due to films such as Dragon Slayer, Legend, The Labyrinth, and
Kroll.
Also,
wasn't He-Man and Masters of the Universe in there?
Oh,
as
that
well?
was in the list too.
Yeah. But Kroll, it disappointed me so bad, and neither of you have watched Kroll yet.
No,
have
but
you?
I want to see it now.
Yes.
I mean, I think
the
I've always wanted to, but yeah, and the
So
Labyrinth
weird,
is good, so
but
it's
I
weird
love
that
it.
it kind of tanked. And Dark Crystal came out in this general time, and that's a fantasy
Stop
too.
trying to play.
But it was perfect, so it should have like had people like understanding that this movie.
So Willow,
more
we're
fantasy
gonna
should
keep
come out.
talking about it.
But no, hold on for a second here. How financially successful was the Dark Crystal? Since I'm going to look
I
this
have
up
no
right
idea.
now because I want to know if it was part of the failures. But I
Yeah.
feel like the Dark Crystal also, in a way, had a cult following for a long time.
Which
until...
kind of Willow does too. Oh, sorry, Phil.
I'm right there on that like bandwagon. I'm a total cult
That
follower.
nostalgia love.
Yeah. Okay. So the budget for the Dark Crystal was around $25 million, and the box office did $41.4 million. So it pretty much doubled its value, but still not like a big box office hit. But also,
But they didn't have what Willow has. Like Willow came out, they had toys, they had 3 video games. 3. I played one. It was on the NES. I didn't really like it. I was too young for it. I
wasn't
didn't
that kind of
understand
a
what's
hard game too? Like
It's kind of like Zelda.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
pretty hard. Also, when George Lucas went around to pitch the movie, everyone kept telling him no because of that reason, and so he ended up financing half the movie by himself. It's another one of these like
Really?
George Lucas like whatever, I'll just do it.
He's like, fine, I'll just make it myself and take all the profits.
Yeah, exactly.
When I prove you all wrong.
Rotten Tomatoes, critics gave it 50%. Give it 50%. Audience score is at 79%. IMDb gives it a 7.3.
Also, I know that people on Google have given it fairly favorable reviews as well. I looked that up. I trust.
Really feel like it's a nostalgia thing.
Do you have award stuff in there?
I do.
I was about to say I looked that up and I was
hoping to surprise you.
I looked it up beforehand.
Go ahead.
2 Oscar nominations for this movie. One for best, because it was different back then. Is it best film sound editing is what it's called?
Yep, best sound effects editing.
Best sound effects editing and best visual effects.
Yeah, actually, this film, and I was going to bring this up later. This film, they had to do some different things that ended up like where they size up a being and change it a little bit in this film. That turned out into something that they used in dozens of film afterwards that they built specifically or improved upon the technology so much of this one that people started using this style of technology for everything for like the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
So,
Do you remember Animorphs, the book?
yes.
Yes.
Do you think that was inspired Animorphs?
Yes.
I don't know. All right, really quick.
I can just see
a couple
the
more
covers, you know.
A couple more things. Oh, and I just want to shout out the 2 other movies that they went up against in the Oscars for that. Those for the award, because it didn't end up winning. Willow didn't end up winning. It was Die Hard and Who Framed Roger Rabbit was also up for it. Who Framed Roger Rabbit was the winner of both of them.
Yep.
So, starring Warwick Davis as Willow Ufgood.
Willow Ufgood.
Val Kilmer as Mad Morgan.
Yes.
Joanne Whalley as Sorsha, who, fun fact, is Daredevil's mom in the new series.
Oh.
Did not recognize her, but she's great in that. I mean, the series is over now, so. Jean Marsh plays Queen Bavmorda.
Oh, fun fact. You want to know what else she played in around the same time she was creepy AF in? She plays... Oh, gosh, I just forgot. She plays, like, the nut house lady in Return to Oz. Like, she's pretty creepy in the Return to Oz.
That creepy one?
Yeah.
That sequel?
I'm writing a blog post on it for our website right now. So I'm just letting you know. It was terrifying. I watched it for the first time.
I've never watched it. I never will.
29-year-old man. I was like, this is a children's movie? Return to Oz. Creepy AF, but still.
The very first time I saw that movie was in screenshots, like BuzzFeed or someone wrote an article, and one of my coworkers sent us the link of just the photos of it. It's weird.
Yeah, it's a trip.
All right, last thing, casting considerations. Mad Morgan. John Cusack says he tested for the role as Mad Morgan. He lost it to Val Kilmer, and he considers it the biggest disappointment of his career.
Really?
When did he say that?
I don't know. Is IMDb? So take that.
It was on a couple of like videos I watched too,
Did it?
like where people have quoted that. So it's got to be somewhat true.
Yeah.
Poor guy. Poor John Cusack.
John Cusack has a great career. This is his biggest disappointment.
Well, I mean, probably because he got most of the other roles he wanted after that. So
He's like, this is the one that they didn't give to me.
Well, and
So I
plus,
regret
like
it.
this was when Val Kilmer was still relatively new into the scene.
Val
wasn't he?
Kilmer was hot. Like, hot stuff at the time. I mean, also attractive, but like, he's like...
Vince is like fanning his face over.
No,
here. He's
is
like,
this... When did Tombstone come out?
I don't know.
Because I think it's around the same time as like Tombstone. It's before The Saint. It's like Val Kilmer was like at peak Val Kilmer. Batman Forever, you know. Val Kilmer was hot stuff back in the day. Everyone loved him. My mom even was like, "Ooh, that Val Kilmer."
Tombstone was 93. Top Gun was 86, so that was before this.
Oh yeah, Top Gun too.
Batman Forever is 95. Willow 90.
So it must have,
88.
he was fresh off of Top Gun and just like riding high.
Yeah.
Joined Willow, this Oscar nominated masterpiece, right, Casey?
Oh yeah, dude, this is a great film.
All right, let's get into
I feel like you're making fun of me. We have to do the spoiler-free stuff as well.
Yeah, let's hear your let's do spoiler-free review.
Here's my summary in a tweet if you would like.
Summary in a tweet.
If my phone will participate.
I'll tell you my spoiler-free review.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I still don't like this movie.
What the heck, Vince? Okay, here's my summary in a tweet. Teenage father of 2 finds baby in river, then proceeds to make giant friends in faraway places.
Did you say teenage father of 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Warwick Davis,
get into that.
when he filmed this, was only like 17 or 18 years old.
He did look like
He
it.
was
Yeah.
17, and those 2 kids, his kids, were 5. He was 12 years older than them. That means he had a kid when he was 12. I don't know how old Willow was
Yeah.
in the movie, but...
And then he learns magical skills and returns to his village a hero among heroes. There you go.
Sorry to interrupt.
I
the
love this
flow of
movie.
the
Yeah, sorry to interrupt your flow there.
It's fine. Okay, here's my spoiler-free feeling of this movie. Yes, the nostalgia of this film is great because it takes me back to when I was a kid and I was sitting there, you know, tummy down, my little hand under my chin, my little feet just flexing back and forth, and me eating snacks on the floor, and my dad saying, "This is a great film." And I loved it because I watched it with my dad, I think. But also, it was pre-Lord of the Rings, like, and all I had was the Lord of the Rings, like, cartoon videos that were made around this era. And so that was, like, part of the big adventure, and it took me out there, but it was the nostalgia, I think, that really keeps this film, like, amazing. But I know that there are plot holes in it. I know that there are weaknesses in it as an adult. But still, this is a film anyone of any age can... I keep hitting my microphone. This is a film anyone of any age can find something in it that's like, this isn't bad. And it, like, for its time, it was a very advanced film. So And plus, Val Kilmer with a sword, long hair, luscious. Plus, there was a good-looking redhead in it, so I have no complaints about that.
Sorsha's pretty. She's a pretty lady.
Yeah.
So before we get to Josh's, I will just, people already know my feelings about this, so I'll already just get it out. Because, I want to get to yours fresh. So real quick, I do not like this movie. I do not hate this movie. But the fact that my wife and her family love this movie so much has made me dig my heels down even deeper, Like, before we met, I had a roommate who liked the movie. And I was like, yeah, I remember Willow when I was a kid, And then I watched it again. And I was like, oh, this is not as good as I remember it being. And then when, I watched this with Hope, and she could quote every line of this movie, and she would do that thing where she gets right up next to my face and just throw out the quotes. Right? I was gonna quote something, but I can't think of a quote right off the head. And she's just right there, just loves it and knows every word of this movie because she used to watch it every week, and she's just has this strong nostalgic connection to it. I don't have that, and it feels old and it feels dated and it feels like you said, it's before Lord of the Rings, and Lord of the Rings is a fantasy perfection, Mm-hmm. And this feels like what fantasy was before we figured out what fantasy should be, if that makes sense at all. I have a really hard time with fantasy. I can't get into the Wheel of Time. I can't get into some of these high magic types of shows with all these weird words and weird names and everything. So I just have a hard time with this genre in general.
Yeah.
And then add to the fact that it's 30 years old now, and I can't do it. I can't like it.
I think, and sorry to jump on Josh and cut you off a little bit more, but I think really for me, I feel like this is around the era too, Disney put out the Black Cauldron, and all of the fantasy around this era was it was just bright versus dark and gross, right? It's bright, clean, and happy, and you've taken a shower and you've used nice shampoo to make your hair luscious, and then otherwise just sweaty, dirty, and your face is solid. You're and that's how I feel this era of fantasy movies was, because even Kroll and even a bunch of these shows, it's if you're not the good guy, you are just gross. And I don't know, you're right. It's before the era they figured out stuff when we look at, I just forgot the Dark Witch's name,
Queen Bavmorda.
Queen Bavmorda.
Again, like I said, weird words.
Yeah,
Bavmorda.
Weird words, but she was not very nice looking the whole entire time. So she was off-putting is the right way to say it.
But we'll get into that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, it was. You're right, Vince. It is before they figured out what fantasy should be. So Josh, this is your first time watching this movie. Give us a Josh spoiler-free version of this film.
Here it is, ladies and gents. The Josh spoiler-free version of this film. If you haven't seen it somehow, just expect from knowing what we know nowadays, it's a weird mix of The Hobbit / Lord of the Rings, The Princess Bride, and the story of Moses from the Bible. So just be prepared for that. So I watched this movie today for the very first time in my house, and my consensus was this movie was awful. So bad. I went back and watched the part I had missed. I fell asleep during the middle of the movie. I was tired, don't get me wrong, but we sort of stayed out late last night when we went to Ford vs. Ferrari, and then we got up sort of early to go to breakfast with my aunt. But I fell asleep, and I had to go back and rewatch some of the stuff just because I was so bored. I was checking my phone a ton of the time during the movie and everything, and I tried to get invested in it, and I was it's just too weird. And a lot of times when I was invested in it, I would look at stuff and just be that is awful. And even though I knew it was groundbreaking visual effects for the time, I could still laugh at it. I'm just what is going on? Or even just the dialogue and stuff that is happening. There would literally be times where something would happen and it was in all seriousness, and I would just laugh, just burst out laughing, just that is hilarious and awful.
I did that too. I found myself laughing at things, and then I'd look at Hope with rolling eyes, really Are we really enjoying this? And she'd be you like it? And I'm For you. For you, I will like it.
All right, so basically, non-spoiler, I did start with awful just so you guys knew my perspective. It wasn't awful. Like, this movie was not good, but like it wasn't like so bad. Like, there were parts that were enjoyable. I did love Val Kilmer wielding a sword. There were a lot of cool parts with that. At times, I was confused why the movie was called Willow and not Matt Mortigan, because he was like
The star.
best part
Such
of the movie.
a valuable player of this movie.
Although Willow does have the most screen time.
Yeah, he does, and he's like the protagonist, right? And so it makes sense. But I'm like, the best part of this was Val Kilmer.
Fun fact, sorry.
No, that was my spoiler-free review.
The movie was not originally called Willow.
It's called Munchkins.
Called Munchkins.
Yeah.
And he wrote it way, way before he even filmed Return of the Jedi. And then he did Return of the Jedi with Warwick Davis. And he was like, Warwick, have I got a part for you?
And he was 11 during this. Warwick Davis was. It took 5 more years, or like 6 more years after that for him to like get it down. But yeah.
So anyway, you want to get into this?
Yeah, let's get into it. I'm going to have to stand here and defend this like Vince defending the Dark Crystal or Terminator Dark Fate.
That's another thing that Hope kept saying was like, when I would do those like eye rolling roll, like at her, she'd be like, you like the Dark Crystal. You can't say anything.
Fair enough.
And like she pointed out the hypocritical fact that I'm like, I don't like fantasy. And she's like, Dark Crystal is the most fantasy thing ever. And you love it.
And you're like,
all right, you got me.
Wow.
All right, spoilers. We're going to go into the movie here. That's our initial thoughts on it.
Oh, and also, just so you know, if anyone hasn't seen this yet, you can watch it now on Disney+.
Yep.
Pay us, Disney Plus. But anyhow, I'm like really sad that you didn't like this. Like, I don't know how I feel. Like, I recognize what this film is, but it's so much fun. It's like, oh, guys.
So there are things that are like lovable about it.
Yeah.
And it's not a thing where you watch it and it's like, it's just so bad. I hate this. And I hate every second of watching this. It's more of like, how ridiculous is this? I'm going to make fun of it through the whole thing type of movie, Yeah. But there are like endearing things. Like there are characters that I really, really enjoyed watching in this movie. Like
Those kids are so cute.
Right? They're adorable.
Oh my gosh.
And that part where the little girl is like, the crazy dogs come into the village because,
And she's crying.
and she's just crying. And I turned to my wife and I was like, those are real tears.
They must have, like, scared this girl.
She is done for the day. After they finish this, she is not pretending. Like, she is done. Whatever is going on, they're going to have to pick her up and they're going to have to swaddle her and be like, these giant dog rat things are not real. Everything is okay.
What do you think those? I want to know what kind of dogs they
I
had
know.
under there. You know.
They are Rottweilers.
No,
Yep.
freaking, that's
They are
terrifying.
Rottweilers in rubber suits.
Those things are scary. So these dogs, like if you've seen this movie, these are like hybrid rat dogs, like running around, like terrifying everyone.
It used to give my wife nightmares when she was a little kid.
They like scared me more than the ROUSs did.
Oh, RUS
yeah.
that scary.
No, Rodent of Unusual Size from Princess Bride. Yeah, terrifying for a young farm boy because that's the last thing I want in my house.
I'd say of anything, though, that the trolls were probably the scariest thing in this movie.
The trolls, they jumped down and I was like, what is that?
It was
Hope's
sort
like,
of
it's a troll. I'm
humorous,
like, that's a troll?
I never got how they were trolls because trolls, I imagine them like pointy hair, beard, just dirty and hairy, and
Under
they're
a
just like
bridge.
they're just like what I imagine Sasquatch to be. But
So to start, like I said, there are characters in here that I absolutely fall in love with. So my question for you guys is, who stands out in it, and what is it about those characters that kind of make you look at overlook the faults of the movie?
Val Kilmer. Because he displays a very wide range of acting in this movie, and he's a lady at one part, and he's just in so many fight scenes, and his fight scenes sort of redeem a lot of the movie. They're very cool, they're very crisp, and those fight scenes require a surprisingly small amount of visual effects.
Anybody else? I mean, I completely agree with you. Val Kilmer is a star. He's so much fun to watch.
I liked like I said, I thought the kids were just adorable. Like, when I saw them, I was like, if I say I hate this movie, I'm like a bad person because these kids are super cute. besides that, there was no one that stood out that much to me. Like, I thought a lot of the other people were just weird and not lovable. Sorry.
Okay, Casey, what about you? Do you have anybody that you just like fell in love with?
So yeah,
Wanted to see more of?
obviously we can say, oh, I really want to see a lot more of like, I'm trying to think of his name. The guy who plays Eric, like his storyline was really interesting to me because he's like a ranger, like him and his army. I think they're
Which one's Eric?
like he's the one who leads the army. Who
Mad
like
Morgan's like friend.
Mad Morgan's friend,
right.
the guy with the red beard who dies. Sorry for spoilers.
No,
but
we're in
We already
spoilers.
hit
Oh, we are?
spoilers.
Okay. But he, like, they're fighting at the end versus the guy with the skull face. Like, I want to know about his story because essentially, as far as I understand, like, his people are, like, they were a different kingdom where the evil queen's, like...
He's that dude from Game of Thrones. The wildling. No, sorry. I wasn't saying he is.
I was like,
Tormund?
he's way
I'm
too
saying
young.
he's like him.
Tormund.
Yeah, okay.
With
No.
the red beard
Yeah.
and everything like that.
Like, he did great. And then I really like... I'm trying to think of this guy's name. Oh, Burglecut.
Burgle cut.
Yes, Burglecut. Like, I think what's really interesting about this, right, is this is a combination film of like like you said, Josh, The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, just all of these things. And so like Burglecut is like who I imagine. Do you remember like in the very first Lord of the Rings, like the Fellowship of the Ring, where there's a guy who's just like they're like yelling at the party, proud feet and all this, and there's just one who's like
The curmudgeonly old like meh.
yeah, like that was way funny to me and like that kind of behavior. And so I thought of like him as kind of like a more playful version of like kind of that old thing. He's like, you can't do this, Willow. He's like openly mocking Willow.
Just overacting like crazy. That laugh that he does in Willow's face is just like the most unbelievable real like laugh. Like it is just so obviously a fake laugh, you know?
Yeah.
And just like, but you look past it because it's Burgle cut.
Yeah.
Burglecut reminded me of that one guy in Joker who, spoilers for Joker, he kills in his apartment.
Mm-hmm.
He reminded me
his-
of that guy.
his
He looks
friend.
like him.
Oh, I don't even remember what he looks like. I have to see Joker again. I haven't seen this in theaters.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry, that was just like a quick like.
but
When
yeah.
I saw Burglecut, that's what I thought.
I
There's
mean,
you
look
go.
at this. He gets puked on by a baby.
Yep.
I actually have a fun fact about that.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, I'll read it because I just wrote some of these down from IMDb. The scene where the baby is sick on Burglecut was not written into the script. Willow walked with a limp, which gave Rebecca, the baby, motion sickness. When she was lifted up, she threw up over his head, and it was so funny they kept it in the film.
That's just actual throw up?
It's actual throw up all
No
over his face.
way.
So, and I love that he just acted through. He's like,
Isn't that gross?
yeah. Oh,
Poor Burglecut. Burglecut, like, he's a jerk.
yeah.
And everything that happens to him, you're just like, yeah, take that Burglecut. But he gets a lot of crap, man.
Yeah.
He takes a lot.
Gets pooped on at the end. Gets thrown up on, and he
Yeah,
goes
the
on.
bird poops on him, right?
Yeah, it's so great. Yeah, I don't know. Those two for me, Eric and Burglecut. What about you, Vince?
I was the same. Eric was on there for me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know more of the backstory of what in the world is going on in this world because there's this big war going on. There's this evil queen that's taken over.
There are frozen
He's leading
people.
an army. There's frozen people. And it doesn't like there's a deleted scene that we need to talk about later. Like there's so much stuff going on that I want to know what's going on with him. He seemed like a cool dude. But there was someone that stood out so much to me that I would love to have more of him. It was played by Billy Barty, who's in a bunch of other stuff. He's a little person. He's in a whole bunch of other stuff. But he plays the High Eldwin. Is that how you say him?
yes.
He's the Dumbledore-looking dude in the Eldwin village, who's just like this crazy wizard guy. And he's like, touch my finger.
I do really like it because he's like that crazy wizard guy, but then half the time none of this stuff like is actually, it's not that it's not working. He just like sort of like BSing some of this stuff. Like when he throws, it's like he's like, follow the bird, and then Burglecut's like, the bird's going back to the village, and he's like, just go that way.
That's one of my wife's favorite quotes. Forget the bird, follow the river.
The bird. Follow the river.
I loved this guy. Like I was just sitting back, just cracking up on all of his facial expressions that he has and the funny, just like lines that he delivered. I was just like, this is the guy. This is the guy right here. Give me more of him.
I'm right there. He is great.
Yeah. So that brings me to my next thing. What do you guys think of Brownies?
Oh my gosh. So
Not the food,
The Indian in the cupboard people.
the little people, the
Not the-
tiny people.
the
Small,
tiny people,
regular sized small people.
Yeah.
the smallest of the small people who are regular sized. I don't know. I could go off about these guys because here's the thing: those guys are funny, but they're almost unneeded comic relief in ways. But they're so funny, and they're just like problematic the whole time. They're just like and like this, but I love them. Like I said, baby. Yeah.
Another one of my wife used to quote it all the time, and it turned into a mixed quote for me where I just kind of combined two of the quotes she used to do, and it's something along the lines of like, oh, you know that guy, we stole the baby from you while you were taking a pee-pee or something like that. And then there's another thing where they're flying on the hawk and they're like, I stole the baby. So somehow in my mind I merged the two, and every once in a while I'll be like to Hope, I stole the baby while you were taking a pee-pee or something. I was just like
Oh man.
But really, like, did the Brownies work for you guys? Like, I get it, they were comedy relief, they were running around, the special effect isn't great because they were filmed on a blue screen and then just like put into the movie. Do you feel like they were necessary? Do you feel like they should have been cut out? Do you like them? Do you not like them?
I think if I lived in 1988, I probably would have like watched this and agreed and been like, that's so cool and everything like that. But I live in 2020 and we have good visual effects now, and it was just too distracting because it was so like you could see every like little like sort of like white thing behind them and stuff like you could just tell so easily. And I feel bad because it's like you have to understand when the movie was made. But for me nowadays it was just like it took me way too far out of the movie.
The remastered version is a little bit better. I just want
Is the one on Disney Plus not remastered?
I don't know if it is the remastered version, but they did it like a couple years ago and it looks a lot better than the original did. So
cool.
Maybe the one on Disney Plus is the remastered version and it looks still bad, but the original was a lot worse. They were almost like faded out, I think. Like I remember like wondering why these ghost like little guys were running around. But I don't know.
Like, who are these mini ghosts?
Many ghosts running around, making jokes, flying on a hawk. I stole your baby. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't love them. They're just crazy little guys. But
And
there's
like-
a couple of like effects that they have that worked. But overall, it's just like, let's move past these guys.
Yeah, and every once in a while, because I think that all of the comedy wasn't needed. Like we said, it was unneeded comedy relief. But like every once in a while, the two that eventually ended up like going with them, they could be funny every once in a while. But,
Yeah,
like, when it was
they did have
all
some
of them and stuff. It's like okay.
Rick Overton and Kevin Pollak's scenes were done against blue screens on sound stages and were then added into the scenes with full-size characters in post-production. We kind of went over that already.
Full miniature-sized characters.
So I guess, unless you guys have anything else you want to talk about, I want to fill in some plot holes here.
Okay. I'm good. Yeah.
Also, can I ask one thing? Did it make sense the way the world went in this? Like where you go up into the mountain and you're back down into this like desert-like valley that almost seemed like Mordor. Like, how'd you feel about like the map in this? Did it make sense to you, or did you feel like you need a little bit more understanding of the world? Like, because there's not a map anywhere of this world actually. Like, you know, with like Lord of the Rings and all of this. Like for me as a kid, like I just like, this is the journey. They went up into the mountain, crossed over, and went down into the next valley. But like, how'd you guys feel about the world? Did it make sense? Did it feel like...
Yeah, I think so. I guess it made sense enough that I didn't think about it.
Cool.
So.
And they like, and it looks very similar, all the world, even though, fun fact, this was filmed in England, Wales, and New Zealand.
And there are some background scenes from China.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They went and shot them and then added them in the background.
I bet it was that one scene where they're just first heading out of the village and you can see that like ginormous valley that sort of spreads
That's probably
out.
it, right?
Potentially. I can't remember all the scenes, but I know that
There's
the
a
way
lot
that
of-
they did this, according to like some of the rumor sites and stuff like that, is they couldn't get a permit to film in China, so they sent people to film stuff in there and then
And then brought it
edited
back and used it as a backdrop.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
There was
Take
a
that.
lot of pretty shots, I will say that.
And also, I have to shout out the music. I thought the music was really memorable.
That was something I was going to bring up because I'm pretty sure like there's a song in this soundtrack that's like 18 minutes long for one, but two, I'm pretty sure the main title song for this is used in a lot of other films as well. Like it's been reused because it's so classic.
It's good, and Hope knows the theme perfectly.
Really?
Yeah. So I keep referencing her a lot
Vince
on it.
knows.
I tried to get her to come and be on the podcast because I really wanted her to listen to her and nerd out about it. So I'm gonna fill in those blanks that she would have done.
Hope you were
Please
missed
come.
tonight.
You've had a huge influence on our podcast. I always try and do my best to talk loud now because of your input and
Yeah.
feedback.
So let's fill in a plot hole here. My biggest problem was the whole love potion story arc, where they have this magic dust that hits Mad Mortigan in the face. He falls in love with the girl. He flaps his lips to the bad Sorsha, and all of a sudden she falls in love with him and decides that she's going to turn on her grandmother and join Mad Mardigan in the fight against whatever evil, I guess. That did not feel earned at all to me. He really doesn't say much. And does he really love her?
I was so confused. I'm like, wait a second. Like, what is happening? And also, she has a chance to go back, and she does. But then all of a sudden, like near the end, she's like, "Screw it! Like, I'm switching back to Mad Mortigan's side." And you're like, "What are you?"
And through the whole thing, you're kind of questioning, like, does Mad Mortigan really love her, or was it all this love potion?
Exactly.
Well, I think that's kind of where like it also gets me as an adult, because you recognize that like this was like a quick storyline film. Like, it doesn't show you that it was like, oh, they love each other. Like it was designed to draw in and like wow audiences really fast, and not designed to build actually that relationship. And so that's why they did it. But I don't know if he really did love her, because it seems like halfway through the film, and at the first when you meet him in that cage, the only thing he loves is himself.
Yeah, he does. Oh, well, and then they end up together, though. So I guess he does love her. Because they did end up together and raise the baby, right?
Yes. Well, I think so, right? I'm just having a brain.
So I'm going to fill in this
Yes.
plot hole for you guys.
Please
There
do.
is a deleted scene that was left out for Sorsha that gives her motivation to turn on the crazy queen, who I can never remember her name.
Bob
Bob.
Bravo.
Bow body.
Oh, body.
So apparently there's a scene that was cut out concerning Sorsha's father, where she goes in, and we referenced this a little bit earlier. People frozen in stone or ice or whatever they were.
Yep.
There's a whole scene cut out of the movie where Sorsha finds her father frozen in ice or stone or whatever, and finds out that it was crazy sorceress Queen Bob.
Queen Bow Body is what her name will be the rest of the podcast.
And
I can remember that.
Because of that, because of the love story where she fell in love with Mad Mortigan, and then this is the like final thing that she finds out that her mother is really this evil person who stole her parents from her and turned her evil. She decided that it's the right thing to do to join Mad Mortigan and fight and conquer evil.
Well,
See,
and
that makes sense.
Yeah, and that
Yeah,
would have
so
made
why didn't
sense
they
to
why did they
leave
cut
in
that?
the film. There's another scene that they cut out, which is super weird, where when Willow is going to the island, he sees
This
a
is
dude.
the next plot.
Oh,
that needs to be
okay. That's funny, but like this was one that I feel like could have made the film better, because I learned about it actually doing research for this podcast. Was that they like had cut this scene, and when I watched it, I was like, weird. That would have made way more sense to have that in there. So
if you pay attention, Willow is given 3 acorns at the beginning that when you throw it and it hits something, it turns that thing to stone.
yes,
He drops one of them during the fight with the giant two-headed monster, and it turns the bridge to stone. And then he throws one of them at the sorceress.
yes.
That's only 2 acorns. In that deleted scene you're talking about, where he has to go out to that island, he talks to a villager from that island, and the villager warns him, do not go out to the water. Stay here. Don't go out to the island. During his trip out to the island, that villager jumps in the water and turns into a giant fish, which they built, and attacks the boat. And he ends up dropping the acorn in the boat, and it turns the boat to stone or something like that. I didn't actually watch it. I just kind of like read a recap, right?
Yeah.
And that's where that missing acorn disappeared to. Plot hole filled.
Yep. But what's also really weird is the idea of the boy jumping in the water and becoming like a fish.
I don't know where that came
He
from.
he looks like one of those fish, the anglerfish. That's what he looks like, is an anglerfish.
So
And Willow, sorry, real quick.
No, go ahead.
Warwick
they
Davis?
did Warwick Davis. They filmed that scene for 2 weeks and then they cut it out completely.
that's gotta be
poor
so
guy.
sad. So anyway, so he goes out on the boat to the island, and then this, what is it?
It's a possum.
Possum, right? That's what I was thinking, but I didn't know. This possum starts talking to him.
Roselle!
And the voice, isn't it so great?
Oh my gosh. The possum. This was one of the moments where I just laughed out loud. I was like, what is happening? Not only that, but it's like we want it to look like, the possum is actually talking to him. So they're just filming this possum, right? And the possum's just doing nothing, but you can see this very obvious, just like pink thing that they've added to be the bottom of the mouth, like going up and down along with the words. And I'm just like, this is awful. This is so bad. I can't even start with this, not just because it was like, you know, visual, just like I was looking at this, I'm like, what?
Another one of my wife's favorite quotes. I am a young, beautiful woman.
As he's like trying to do this bow.
You wouldn't have laughed if you'd watched this as a kid, Josh. That's all I have to say.
So, Josh, what did you think about her not actually being young and beautiful woman anymore?
This is so good.
Well, especially when he finally was able to turn her into
that whole journey of him
human.
attempting to turn her into a human is probably my favorite display of magic fail. Like, it's like, huh, fail. And then it's like, next animal, fail, next animal. But sorry, Josh.
When he finally turns her in, and not only is she like an old woman, she's like holding this like thing over herself. I was just like, what is happening? And I don't remember the line, but it's sort of like right before that happens, or maybe it's right before he turns her into a goat. But I remember he's trying, and she's yelling like, feel something or do something like that. And I just remember I like laughed out loud. It was just hilarious to me. He did great. Like, yeah, it was a good sort of like, you know, he has to go through and do the magic, but it's all a lot of it is also like very predictable, knowing where the story is going.
Mm-hmm. You know? And I do have to shout out again, the effect that they did here was groundbreaking and really cool, and I actually was really impressed with it. Even today, watching the transformation from the different animals and moving down and everything, it was actually really cool.
There are
stuff.
a couple where I see it and I'm like, that looks super solid. Like, one of them was only very, very quick, but when the sorceress originally started to throw, what's her name? Sorsha? Mm-hmm. When she started to throw Sorsha up against like where those spikes were going to be,
wall.
Oh, yeah.
It was only like for about a second. But when she originally threw her off of the ground, it was like, it was 2019. It was only for a split second, and then it switched to a place where you couldn't see her feet, and so it's sort of obvious what they're doing. But for that little split second, it was great. And I was like, holy cow. Like, that was a really, really good. It was 1988. Mm-hmm. Probably 1987 because this came out in like April or May or something.
Yeah.
Did you guys have a special effect that was your favorite throughout this? Since obviously the special effects were such a big and part of this movie when it came out.
Most definitely the trolls.
Crickets.
I'm being sarcastic. I think for me, like we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, I liked when they changed, like when Willow was attempting to change this, like the sorceress back into her human form. I thought that was really cool, and I remember thinking of like being a little kid and it being like a slot machine. You know, that's like how it was for me. Is like that excitement. What's she gonna be? And then how she changed into the tiger, and then you know the goat, and then everything. Like didn't she change into a bird? Yeah, and like all that. And so it was like a lot of fun to like see that as an adult and kind of be like, okay, that was weirder than I remember, but it was still fun. Like, that's my favorite special effect. And then also, I want to bring up at one point, like, we got to talk about this, the final fight between the two sorceresses. Mm-hmm. Like, that was pretty fun stuff. Like, the special effects with that, throwing the wand around, the lightning coming down. But also, I got some major Lord of the Rings vibes when, like, Gandalf and Saruman are fighting in Saruman's tower at that point. Like, I got
throwing
major...
each other around with their spells.
Yeah, throwing each other around with the spells and throwing their staffs out and showing it and like spinning his Gandalf's head around. Like, I got some major vibes of that, so just had to bring that up.
I really like the two-headed monster effect. When Willow uses a spell and he turns into this like blob of goo brain looking thing, and then all of a sudden faces jump out of that whole effect was really cool. And then he pushes it, and I thought that was going to be the end of that. Uh-huh. And I was like, that's pretty gnarly and like gory, and like I was like, that for a kids movie, that's pretty crazy. And then all of a sudden this big two-headed dragon pops out of the thing, and it's like, you know, it looks kind of poor or whatever, but it reminded me so much of the Rancor from Return of the Jedi.
Yes.
That I was just kind of like getting major vibes from that movie, you know, which would make sense that this is fresh off of Return of the Jedi or whatever, you know. But I really liked that, and I don't know, and I guess the effect of the changes were cool.
What about you, Josh? Did you have any that were your favorite?
Yeah, so I think that one we talked about when she threw the one lady the very first time, even if it wasn't my favorite because it was very simple, it was just very clean, and it was very well done in that it was very hard to tell like what was happening to make that special effect occur.
In that same fight, what did you think about the bedpan that came to life?
Oh yeah.
I very much, that was one of the moments where I was just like shaking my head. I'm like, this is like the climax of this is the climax of the movie, and the main character is fighting a table. This is not Beauty and the Beast. Like, this is, I was laughing at that part. I will say, I was like, and obviously he went on eventually to fight the sorceress at the end, but I was like, this is basically the climax of the movie, and you have this old lady sorceress fighting another old lady sorceress, and then you have the main character fighting a table.
Fighting a table.
All right.
I'm gonna make this baby disappear.
I did also like the turning the army into pigs.
Oh,
Although it wasn't like an amazing special effect, that first shot of like the pig face and then like the pig hand dropping down, and then as it pans across and everyone's turning into a pig, there's someone laying there in the middle of the battlefield who's like half pig, half human, and he looks like he's just like writhing in pain. I was like, man, this just turned into a horror movie. Like, he got kind of scary there.
Creepy and weird. That was one that, like, even though I didn't like it, because I was like, what the F is happening? Like, I was just like, that's pretty crazy, and they did do a good job with that as well.
Yeah, that was like, I remember that being the most terrifying part of this movie, next to the rat dogs, was when he Mad Morgan's like, he's like, ah, and you're like, ooh, that's gross. And I remember hiding behind my parents' couches during that as well. Like, they had some blue couches. I remember that very vividly. I used to hide behind them a lot. Scared little boy.
So kind of wrap this up. Unless do you guys have anything else you want to bring up? Because I got a bunch of fun facts I can hurry and rattle off.
Despite both of you making fun of this film, I still love it, and I need everyone to know that.
Okay,
I'm such a fanboy.
And I guess, just really quick, with us talking about it, I guess it is like a bit funner than I thought when I was watching it. When I was watching it, I was just like laughing and like, this is awful. But we're talking about it, and I'm like, okay, it's fun. You know?
I think
like, there's times where it's fun.
I think you guys need to remember the tagline from Willow. I just want to make sure. The tagline was "One Big Adventure." That's what this film is.
And it was.
Yeah.
It was a big adventure.
So that's
and
all.
I completely agree with what you guys are saying. Do I like this movie? No, not really. But I love how much my wife loves this movie. I love how much my wife's family love this movie, and I can appreciate that because I have a love for a movie that's just as eye-rollingly bad and nerdy and fantasy, and I can respect the nostalgia of it all, and I love that people love it, but this one is not for me.
I do not think that I will ever in my entire life watch this movie again. It was fun-ish, and I was like,
when you decide to have children one day, I'm gonna introduce them to Willow, and they will love it.
I guess if I had like kids one day and you were like, let's watch Willow, I'd be like, okay. But I do not plan to any day of my life sit down and be like, you know what I want to watch? Willow would be super dope right now. Sorry.
Just wait, it's coming. You're gonna miss it one day and be like, I gotta watch that again. Okay, Vince, what are our facts?
All right. Real quick, we'll just rattle them off fast, okay? So between 225 and 240 little people were hired for this film. Crazy amount of people that don't get work in acting. And it was kind of fun because I actually recognized some of the people in this that have appeared on like Seinfeld and appeared in like a bunch of other stuff. So I thought it was really cool. Warwick was 17 when filming this movie. Yeah, he has 2 5-year-old kids. He looked way too young. Devil dogs were Rottweilers in rubber suits. The large group of pigs outside the castle continuously tried to mate with each other during filming. So they had to use buckets of cold water to separate them from each other. According to press kits and subsequent according to the press kits and subsequent novels, the 2-headed dragon named Eborsisk, that's how you pronounce it. The 2-headed dragon that I like the effect of, its name is Eborsisk. It's a reference to 2 movie critics, Gene Siskel and Robert Ebert. The word does not occur in the film, but it is used in some of the like books and stuff. There's 3 books. Another fun fact. George Lucas wrote 3 books that are published and out there if you want to explore the world some more.
And it's those continuation of Amora's life, like after as she grows up. And I think the final book is where she's like a dragon hunter.
That's cool. Yeah. I'm going to buy. Hope if you get this far into the podcast, dang it, but I'm going to buy these books for my wife for probably future birthdays and stuff.
You should.
The character of the evil general that wears the skull mask.
I loved him, by the way.
I can't remember his name. Kale, is that how you pronounce it? Kael is how you say it.
Yeah, Kale.
He is said to have been named after the film critic Pauline Kael. George Lucas does
George
not
Lucas
like
just taking
film
shots
critics.
at everyone.
I don't quote me on this, but I remember reading somewhere that George Lucas does not like film critics. And this could be completely wrong, so don't, take this with a grain of salt, but I think I remember reading that he said like critics are the worst people because they're like people who wish they are creative but aren't, so they tear down other people's work. I don't know if that's like was George Lucas, but that's a quote that I've heard out there, and I kind of feel like that's his feelings on this because he named two of the worst people or two of the biggest monsters in this movie after these critics of big critics at the time.
Also, can we talk about Kale really fast? I didn't bring him up earlier, but he's wearing like the helmet with the skull on the face, right? And every time he does anything, he like yells, "Whoa!" Like he just goes crazy. And I remember just like that being the perfect bad guy, like warrior as a kid. Like you had to yell if you were the bad
skull
guy.
look,
Yeah. You had to cover your face, but yeah. Thank you.
The 6-month-old twins playing Laura Dannon were too young to have a full head of hair, so the kid wears a wig, which was applied using syrup because normal wig adhesive would be too harsh for the baby's skin.
Whoa, syrup.
Yep.
But that was a tasty baby.
Why would you say that? Never mind. Nope. Just keep. Nope.
We're moving on.
Do I need to delete that?
No, I love it. That'd be a tasty baby. Put that on the t-shirt.
We just put like the baby of Laura dead. That'd be a tasty baby.
Yep.
Casey.
All right, last one. The scene where the baby... Oh, no, we already went over that. He throws up on Burgle Cut. When the baby throws up on Burgle Cut. And that's it. So... There you go.
2 against 1. Take
Wrap it
that,
up.
Casey.
At the end of the day, all I want anyone to know is that this film should be watched at least once. If you enjoy it, great. If you didn't, shut up.
Let people like things.
Let me like things. Vince likes Terminator Dark Fate. And I haven't even watched it, though, but everyone seems saying it.
Michael, let him like it.
Yeah, Michael, just let him like it. I'll let him like it. Also, Vince is a fan of The Dark Crystal, so he's a fan of 80s era fantasy films as well. So, there, can happen. And also, Vince is gonna really like Krull when he watches it.
I want to watch Krull.
I
do.
I want you to watch Krull so we can just have a discussion. We don't even have to do a podcast about it. But the films of this era that were fantasy were like the teenage years of fantasy film. I feel like they were awkward. They had a little bit of acne, but once they grew into there and came into their own in the late 90s, early 2000s, they've been great. Except for Jupiter Uprising.
This laid the foundation for Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones and
yeah. Love it.
and that's it.
Anything else we need to talk about on Willow?
Nothing for Willow for me. Just be sure to check out our social media platforms, especially right now. We have the MCU bracket going on. If you have a movie, your favorite MCU movie, be sure to check it out and vote for your favorites. We'll be doing a few matchups pretty much each day over the next little while, and then we'll review the winner, aka Endgame probably. But
Don't say that.
we're hoping not. Just kidding. I don't know.
Actually, I wanna say something. I was surprised nobody voted for the Edward Norton Hulk film. Like, don't get me wrong, that was early poor Marvel, like studios. But what a fun film
against though. I forgot.
Doctor Strange, I'm pretty sure.
Doctor Strange was so good.
It was, but I'm just surprised. Doctor Strange was good, but the Edward Norton Hulk was good too.
Did you vote for Hulk?
Yeah, I did.
So I got a fun little tidbit before we wrap
On
it up
one of the two
on
platforms.
the Incredible Hulk movie.
Yeah.
So when I finally got around to seeing Incredible Hulk, it was on Blu-ray, and I bought it from an FYE used. Took it home, popped it in the thing. It was scratched. I did not know this. It skips 20 minutes of the movie.
Oh my god.
I didn't know for months that I had missed big scenes from the movie. When I found out there was that like funny sex scene where like the Hulk's heart rate went up, I was like, what are you guys talking about?
Like, oh yeah, that sex scene in Hulk, and you're just like, what?
What is this?
So I had to get a hold of another person's copy so I could watch the full movie. No idea. There was like 20 minutes cut out of that apparently didn't need to be in it.
Yeah.
Because I still saw it. I was like, yeah, it's pretty good.
So check us out on Twitter at PauseRewindPLA and on Instagram at PauseRewindPlayPodcasts. And also check us out. We have a lot of new content going up onto the website.
Not new content. Oh no, sorry. Website, YouTube. I was thinking
YouTube,
not
yes.
not new content going up on YouTube, but there is our content going up on YouTube.
We do have on YouTube as well, but
Sorry
we do
to
have
interrupt
new
you.
content, couple things that we've been writing on our website, prppodcast.com.
I have 7 blog articles ready to go, so we just have to edit those up and get some designs. And so, yeah, we're trying to build this out a little bit. If you should have a favorite movie that we need to watch and talk about, and you want to come be a guest on our show, and you live locally,
us.
I love doing these old movies.
yeah.
I do, like revisiting them and chatting about them. I love doing it. So.
Actually, one of the movies that we're going to be talking with one of my friends is actually also from the 80s here, and it's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle film. And I'm excited. Those sweaty men in turtle suits were my childhood for a long time. I've had some real humdinger of phrases tonight. But anyhow, thank you so much for tuning in to the Pause Rewind Play podcast. We appreciate love and would give you hugs over your support in listening to our podcast. If you could, just share it with a friend and let them know what you think of our podcast and let us know what you think of our podcast. I went on really long and cut off half of this. But anyhow, thank you again for tuning into the Pause Rewind Play podcast. We'll catch you next time.